Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. So I am super excited this morning to have Miss Ann Beck here, who is going to be amazing as always. Miss Ann, so first, before we start, I ask that you like, share, comment on the podcast. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you're on Spotify or Apple, download. Send us a review. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what you would like to see so that we can enhance the experiences of our clients and customers. So with all that being said, now we will jump into the podcast. And so, of course, it's the Millionaire Nurse CEO podcast with Miss Ann Beck. So Miss Ann, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. So I currently am a mentor and guide, a coach for women who feel like they're living in survival mode, on verge of burnout, despite all of the self-care and therapy that they have done to reclaim themselves, to put their needs front and center, so that they can both live a life at home and at work with joy, live a life that they really love. And that was born from my own experience of burnout. So I, for 35 years, worked in healthcare as both an RN and then went on to get my NP work. So for about 23 years, I worked as an NP in two specialty areas, one in critical care medicine and the other in palliative medicine.
Well, let's go back because I want to know why you even became a nurse. So let's start there, okay?
Beautiful. Well, I have to tell you, I remember I've gone back to look at my, the books that your kids have, or you get your kids that ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I remember seeing in that book, as far back as I can remember, I remember writing like kindergarten, that I wanted to be a nurse. Mm-hmm. And so that has been like a lifelong thread of mine. And I can't really say that it was born of any particular experience. I've always just had this thing that I wanted to be a nurse. Mm-hmm. And I think it filled this real desire that I still have to both support people and empower them to live fully, to be who they are. And of course, much of my career I spent in sort of illness care, right? I did some family practice and et cetera, but much of my work was really focused where people were critically ill or facing a life-limiting illness. But I had a beautiful career, but I feel like that thread of supporting people, of helping them to meet the big challenges in their lives, to really live who they are, has always been there, has always been a thread through how I've approached my work and continue to approach my work now.
I love it. So now you, during the time, so what unit did you go into at the beginning?
Yeah, so I started out in neuroscience, and then I went into critical care medicine, and I was there for quite a bit of my career, in my initial part of my career. And then I did a bit of cardiovascular research with McMaster University in Hamilton. Um, and then from there, I mean, I was constantly wanting to learn. I absolutely, it was like a sponge, right? I just absorbed information. I had the most magical experiences. Even outside of sort of regular work hours, I would just, scrub into really neat surgeries, and people got to know. So a surgeon would say, "Hey, Anne, come and join us. We're doing this really neat surgery." So I just had this amazing career. And so over this time, I just built this repertoire, and anything that I could learn, I learned. And so critical care was really this place, which was so, I would say, magical for me. It was an edge that I loved to work. I loved that opportunity to work at the changing edge of life, both with my own skills and developing my own skills, um, but also helping people, the humans, the patients, their families, to navigate that edge as well. So
I love.
that's really where I spent much of my time.
Because ICU, they say the nurses and ICU nurses are the same, and I used to really honestly think that, but the reality is that ICU nurses, see, y'all are a little different than we are, right?
Yeah.
Y'all are very methodical. Y'all are very, listen, we got to take care of this patient, and it's in a controlled environment, but we have controlled chaos. And
Yeah.
so ICU nurses typically don't do well in the ER. They're like, this is a bunch of shenanigans out here. We about to do this, right?
Well, you know what's interesting? I actually loved working Emerge because I did work there as well. And I think, again, what I loved was the variety. I loved the opportunities and the breadth of people that we served, right? I mean, everybody from pediatrics. I mean, my work, where I focused, I didn't look after little people. I was in an adult tertiary center ICU. And so, being able to work the breadth of our human beingness, right? From pediatrics to moms who were expecting, to right all the way up to people who were very elderly, and the unexpected edge, right? There is chaos there. And I am somebody who like wants to make order out of chaos. So it was an edge, right? This is an edge that was always present in my work. And I mean, it still is some of that, right? Like, I chaos is part of the thing that I'm like, okay, I got to find a way to make order out of this.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So you tell the story about how you went from, you were in, was it a religion that you were in? And
Yes.
I like a religion that I've never heard of before, but I know a little bit, but maybe I just don't know everything. So I learned new things every day. So the religion was, tell me what the religion is.
Yeah. So thanks for asking about that. I feel like that was really, Viola, the first time, and this pulls a powerful thread through both my career, but also through to what I do now, was the first time I really listened to me,
Uh-huh.
to myself,
Uh-huh.
my own voice.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in a very conservative Mennonite religion, and what you may be more familiar with is Amish.
Mm.
So head coverings, long dresses, black stockings, black shoes. That is that is where I grew up, and I joined the church when I was 12. Um, and we weren't sort of baptized into the church. We chose to join the church, but of course there's a lot of pressure, if you want to call it that, to conform, to be part of that. And so I joined the church, and then really tried to fit the mold, fit who I needed to be acceptable inside of that church. And so it was a constant sort of bumping up against, um, this is what my heart calls, no, that's sinful, right? And shoving it back in the box. Going on to school was not a thing, so I did it quietly. So even as I tried to fit the mold, of who I was supposed to be inside of this church, there was this part of me that was like disruptive, right? Not trying to stir the pot, but more saying, hey, like this doesn't make sense to me. This, and so ultimately at the age of 37, I was married. I had three young sons. They were like 10, 9, and 7. I I knew I had to leave. And that was like pulling the rug out from underneath myself, because it immediately meant I was excommunicated from my community, from my family. And I was stepping into a world that I really didn't know, right? I had no idea. The first pair of pants I ever bought were so huge, I had to use a safety pin to hold them up. Because I literally was like, I can't buy anything that fits my body. And so I had to learn how to be, quote, in the world, right? How to be in that world. And it was this simultaneous experience of the most heartbreaking grief coupled with the greatest freedom I had ever experienced. And it was this, I get to be me. And then immediately was like, I don't even know who the heck that is. I don't know who I am, because for so long I have tried to be what I needed to be. So it became a discovery of finding me, of who am I outside of the constricts and constructs of the church that I grew up in, the norms. And by the way, there was beautiful things, values that I grew up with. It wasn't like discarding everything, but it was about trying to get to the core of, well, who am I and what did I really believe? What were the parts of me that was like, what's a yes, what's a no? Because there was so much conditioning and so many beliefs that I had internalized, um, from being a part of that church. And so it became this exploration as I, moved in my career, as I sort of grew up in my career, um, to live more and more true to myself. And and essentially what I discovered after I burned out was was this very thread. The cause of burnout isn't our work. It's how we engage with our work. And the engagement with our work is informed by all of the conditioning that we bring to it. So we overgive, we overcommit, we overwork, we empty our cup, we put others before ourselves, we leave ourselves on the back burner. And it becomes this slippery slope of leaving ourselves behind, of not speaking our truth.
It's really interesting because I grew up Pentecostal holiness. And one of the things that when I grew up, it was, you know, you have to do this, you have to do certain things. And of course, I grew up wearing dresses all the time too. I remember wearing pants. Now, I wasn't like you. Now I was, the skirts were like short, okay, because I had, nice, cute legs at that time. I always tell people that the reason why the Lord did not give me cute legs at this time is because He knew what's going to happen. He knew what's going to happen. So He was like, let me just give her some little cellulite there, okay? So, so I, of course, when I started wearing pants, it was like an awakening for me, for it to be just different than it was. And one of the things that I learned, which helps me, in my relationship with God now, is that God, once we're saved, we're already saved, right? And so in that religion, it was just not believed that, like, it was like, if you commit this sin, then you're going to die and go to hell, right? And I was like, well, how can I not, like, I'm going to sin every day, right? And so how can I not sin? Like, so it was a crazy thing to transition from one to the other. But I feel you in that, because a lot of times what happens is, in the church, sometimes what happens is there's this thought process, even within, the communities in which I deal with now, that whenever you're doing coaching and consulting or within the business arena, that like you shouldn't charge, like you should give all of this, you should do all of these things. And Darius Daniels, who is an amazing pastor, one of the things that he said was, he said sanctification and salvation are free. He said, but if you want transformation and optimization, there's going to be a price to pay. And I was like, that's good. Yes. It was really good. So I was like, okay. And so, and it's true, right? Because we have to be very intentional about understanding that sometimes people have to pay a price in order to have that transformation, because sometimes they won't even show up for themselves. And so we're going to go to a commercial break for just a second. Then we're going to come back and talk about burnout and how you transform that. Okay.
Beautiful.
Our live event is going down twice a year in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, called the Millionaire Nurse CEO Conference. We will be covering the blueprint and master plan to grow a wealthy and flourishing company. We love that you listen to the podcast, but we want you in the room. We will be sharing insights on marketing and sales strategies so that you are able to create more impact and make more money, creating more freedom so that you can do the things that you love. So join us for the nursing event of the century. Go to vpnursing.com to sign up for this life-changing event. So we're back. And just so y'all know, vpnursing.com does not have that event on the page yet, but we'll have it up in a few days. Okay, so now, Miss Beck, so tell us, by the time this airs, it will be up. But tell us about you burning out and how that giving. And what do you think that arises from? I think that I kind of think that I can figure it out, but you go ahead. You tell us.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I was, doing my career, which I totally loved, I knew that there was this, the long hours and the kids things. Well, I'm stuck at the hospital. There's something that happened in the ICU. I can't get out, a child's event or something. And I basically just, my career was my focus, right? That's where it was very compelling to put in the extra time. If somebody's coding or something's going down, I'm not going to leave. And so I saw this in myself, and I felt like, my gosh, it has to be easy. Life has to be easier than this. And so this was my work, but outside of my work, I was also really deeply interested in who am I? How do we create a life that's easier? So I did a lot of personal growth stuff. I became a yoga teacher, and down the road, then I became a meditation teacher, and I was practicing all of these things, right? I was doing all of the self-care things. I've been to therapy many times, and I was like, well, how in the heck then did I burn out? I was doing all the things. And this is pre-pandemic, right? I mean, the pandemic was just a whole nother thing on the top of all of this. But I was doing all the things that people, we were told to do to take care of ourselves. And I was checking all the boxes. I'm a good student, right? I checked the boxes off and did what I needed to do. And yet, there I found myself completely like I was not only exhausted, but I was ashamed. I felt so ashamed that I could not make myself go to work, that I could not do the things that I had patients, I had people that were expecting me, and I could not do it. I felt ashamed. I was sad. I was so anxious. And what the heck happened? And that really became the catalyst for me to be like, okay, there's something else going on, something else other than this self-care stuff, because that didn't do it. That did not prevent me from burning out. And what I discovered, and this was, I worked with a mentor, um, was it wasn't it wasn't the work. Healthcare will always be an endless hole of need, of resources, limited resources, health, human resources, finances, whatever. There will always be an increasing, never-ending need. So the truth is, how do I, as a one human, as a professional, engage in an environment where there is endless need?
Mhm.
And as I dove really deep, I discovered it is it's the stories that I carried about who I needed to be in
Mm,
that role,
mm,
who I was expected to be, not only by the organization, but by society and culture and, my own growing up stories, but also the stories I had for myself of who I had to be in order to be a good person, a good nurse practitioner, a good nurse, a good employee, all of the things that drove this need for me to overdo, to overgive, to overwork, to overcommit to things. That really became the core of it. It was like, oh my gosh, it's not my work, it's how I do my work. And Maslich, who is a huge person who's done lots of work in burnout, I mean, she nailed it. She said it's how we engage with our work. And I mean, when I discovered this, I hadn't actually known much about Maslich, but I was like, you nailed it. We think it's our work, but it's not. What we bring to our work
mhm.
is what happens. And the only way to manage that is to get clear about me, who I am, put my needs front and center so that I can serve from the overflow of my full cup. Serve, as some would say, from the saucer,
So,
the saucer. Yes,
right. You know,
exactly.
it's very interesting because when you think about it, because what I think about is the stories that we're told in nursing. We're told that if we don't, sign up for that extra shift, then we'll be letting our coworkers down. We're
Yes.
told that if we don't go in this room and help this patient, then that patient may pass away, right? And so we
Yep.
think we're told, by the organization that the more we do, then the more they'll like us, and the more that we'll. But the reality is, and it wasn't until Miss Pam Tripp, who is an absolutely amazing leader. One of the things that she said to at one of the it was a conference that we went to, when she started talking about putting that oxygen mask on yourself. And when she started
Mhm.
talking about the fact that they tell you to do that on the plane, and I remember when them telling me, we were going to New Orleans, and it was probably my second flight in my whole entire life. I had my little girl on the flight, and it was, listen, I didn't like pregnancy. That was a whole shenanigan. That was tripping. It was just not a good thing for me, right? And so when I got pregnant and I had her, we were on this plane, and the lady said, "Put the oxygen mask on yourself." And I said, "She's tripping. She doesn't know me. Okay, she don't know me. Like she ain't never had another lady on the plane with it. She's not the expert. Okay, I'm the expert for myself, right?" And so
Yeah.
I put the oxygen mask on myself before I put the oxygen mask on my child. But the reality is that if I don't do it for myself first, then I can't. And she's left to flail if I die, and then she's left in the hands of strangers if I die. So I have
Yep.
got to be very intentional. And I tell people all the time, I pour from my salsa. My husband, my children, nobody gets from my cup, because I have to keep my cup full in order for me to be able to pour from my saucer. And it is a lesson
Mhm.
that you learn absolutely when you're, not just in healthcare, but also in business, right? You have
Yes.
to be very intentional about that burnout, right? And like you said,
100%.
no, right? Saying no
Yep.
whenever it's just like I can't. It
Yeah.
is 12 o'clock. I need to eat.
Yep. Yes. Totally. Absolutely. 100%. And I think there's a place of saying no, because sometimes people say to me, well, yeah, I can just, I'm going to build my boundaries. What I know is we can try to erect boundaries, right? I mean, you go to therapy, they say you need to work on boundaries, right? And you go back to therapy and they say you need to work on boundaries, and you're wrestling with boundaries. But what I know for sure is that when you connect with your own truth, boundaries automatically situate themselves around your truth. And so there's no energy leak of trying to erect boundaries. Now it's just, this is my truth. I don't have to defend my boundary. It's just, actually, this is a no for me. And
Mhm.
I'm not wrestling with mindset. I'm not wrestling with boundaries. I am so clear. I am so grounded in my own truth, the life that is given to me, right? That this is me. This is my one unique sliver of life to live, my gift of life, and grounding myself there, and using that as here's my yes, here's my no, does two things. One is the boundaries automatically arise without me having to make them happen. It's just my truth. The other thing is I begin to track my joy. So I'm literally steering my life by the nudges that life is giving me. Yep, this is a yes for me. No, that's not for me. I steer away from it. So literally tracking your joy by being connected to your truth, not from a place of, defending your boundaries, but from a place of owning your truth. That is where these boundaries automatically arise. And nobody really wants to fight them because they're based in truth. People, when you hear the truth, people don't often feel like they need to poke holes in it. They're just like, oh, that's just the truth. And that is where it's not just about, well, you need better boundaries. No, this is not, the work I do with people is not therapy. It is about, how do we reconnect here? Find this, your personhood, your true self, and then begin to live life through that lens. And that is where my clients say, oh my gosh, like, the world is the trees are a different color. Like, everything is so sharp and clear, right? That is what I learned.
I love it. And that internal voice is huge, because
Yeah.
once know it's a complete sentence, and you just like, I'm just not gonna do that. Okay. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't have to give you an explanation. This is my no, and I'm good with that. And the only person I have to explain that to is myself. And that's it.
Yeah.
Me and the Lord.
At 100%. Yes.
I
And I
love
think, as you said, this applies not just to nurses who are employees, but this applies to, like, how many women who are business owners, right? Now they even feel the additional pressure of, oh my gosh, I've got to drive the bus, right? But we can actually partner with life to help us drive the bus, because life is flowing from us to be able to choose the things that are actually for us. And so we don't have to make things happen. We can listen here, and that allows us, it's an incredible amount of trust with life. It's a partnership with life. But burnout, it happens across the spectrum, and it isn't just in relationship to our work, but I see it in women entrepreneurs. I see it women in corporate. I see it hugely in healthcare.
That's huge. It's huge. We could probably talk all day long about burnout. We could really talk all day long, period. I mean, like, we just like with each other, right? So, but we have to, people have to go to work. And so so tell the people. So first, I'm gonna ask you some rapid fire questions, okay?
Sure.
So it's a very succinct. Let's go for it. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what has been the most rewarding thing about nursing?
The opportunity for me to both, it's this giving and receiving. It's giving and receiving, the experience of being with people, and yeah, experiencing that give and take with other humans.
I love it. What is the most common misconception about nursing?
I would say the expectation of who they are, um, and who they should be.
What are you reading now?
Ooh, I'm I'm reading some great books. I always have a bunch on the go. I just finished an amazing story, that was a piece of history that I didn't really even know about the Henya, and I think it's called the island of sea women, the island of women of the sea by Lisa C. See. Amazing, fantastic book. The Henya, it's a Southern Korean island, and oh my gosh, I'm also listening to Chris Voss, um, who was an FBI negotiator,
Mhm.
and pulling the threads from his book of like how do people work, like what are the things that bring, and I think as a business owner, how we how we engage with our people. This is such a great, there's beautiful little threads and snippets that I am pulling from there. I'm reading a book called Forever Strong by Gabriel Lyon, who is a physician. It's called A New Science-Based Strategy for Aging Well. Um, oh my gosh, what else am I reading? I usually have about 4 books.
Me too. Me too. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's the craziest thing. So, what is the biggest lesson that you have learned in business?
It's the same thing that I learned in Burnout. I still see how deeply ingrained this story of who I think I'm supposed to be. I bump into it. That's the edges of my freedom. I'm not there. There's no there in this process. I always find more and more edges of my freedom. So I find how deeply ingrained these stories are, and I bump into them and like, whoa, there it is again. And so as much as this drive, I want to do this. I want this to be shared with the world. It will change the world. I can literally drive myself to that edge again. But I see it now and I'm like, oh, whoa, okay. I am totally living. I'm starting to live from here and not from here. And so that impresses me all the time is how much this is still here. And sometimes I even laugh at it. I'm like, oh boy, there I am again doing doing this thing. It's just that I see it and I don't go down the rabbit hole.
And I think that's big, big, big right there, because what it does, I know that what you have learned in nursing or what you have learned in your job, it can translate into your business for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so great, great. So tell us where people can find you.
Sure. I mean, I'm on the social media platforms, LinkedIn, and Beck's is it's pretty simple. Same with my IG handle and Facebook, and also my website, which is super simple. It's annbex.co. It isn't com. It's .co. Yeah, and that's those are probably the easiest ways. And I love hearing from people. So if they want to shoot me an email, go to my website. You can find my email there, and my website is in it's getting a redo, but yeah, there's pages there, so
I
that's
love
an
it.
easy way. And I run workshops usually twice a month, and on burnout, so that's another way people can connect with me.
Sweet, sweet. It's been a pleasure, a pleasure. Again, like, comment, share. Spotify and Apple, download the podcast, give us a review, drop a review that helps grow us. Also, if you're on YouTube, click that subscribe button, click the like button. That helps us grow as well. We want to get the message of nurses out to the world. So we want to make sure that we're getting it out there. So, Ms. Beck, thank you for being on the show today. And you, ladies and gentlemen, you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye-bye.